All right, welcome back to another edition of Market Watch Weekly. Today, we're going to be doing this show solo. It's just going to be me today. Mike wasn't able to join us for this one, but that's okay. We're still going to kill it. Thank you all for tuning in. Welcome back to another edition of the show, ladies and gents. And we've got some really interesting analysis to be covering in this show today because Bitcoin is looking very bullish right now. Bitcoin has found itself in a very happy position. Bitcoin has found itself in a very good place in the market. And it's something that personally, as somebody who, look, I still wanted to see downside for quite some time. But, as somebody who's willing to kind of switch bias if the market is giving me different information, this is definitely looking very strong. It's definitely looking very good. So let me just make sure everything's good on my side. Welcome to the stream, ladies and gents. Thank you all for tuning in. And yeah, let's get into it. So as usual, if you do want to see more of my analysis, if you want to see more of me, you can do that by checking out the link in the description below to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be covering some really interesting trade setups that I'm interested in on my channel later on today. And I'm going to touch on them in this one as well. But yeah, let's get into this because I think the first key thing that I want to discuss with you guys in this live stream today is Bitcoin's strength in this zone. Now, first of all, Bitcoin has very nearly fulfilled its target of this pattern, which is something that's cool. This is just a measured move of this pennant, which Bitcoin broke out of. It's very nearly gotten there, so I'm happy with that. I'm happy to delete that now. And the next thing that we've got going on in this chart is a very nice set of responses to our resistance zone. Our resistance zone at $67,000 right here has rejected Bitcoin pretty quickly the previous time that we were here in the middle of April. The next time we got here toward the end of April, we managed to spend a little bit more time there. And this is something that I find really interesting. You see, we're on the 4-hour time frame now. And previously, when we got up into this range, we didn't last long here. We got smacked down very quickly. The next time, we managed to stay here for a little bit. We did still get a rejection, and it was a pretty big rejection, but we managed to stay here for about 2 days. Now, on this occasion, since we've kind of hit this price range up until right now, it's been 4.5 days coming on to 5. And to me, that's a really big sign because that shows me that where previously this resistance was sending Bitcoin down pretty quickly, it's getting what I would call mushy. Okay, we're getting a more mushy zone of support. And when we've got a mushy zone of support, to me, that is a sign that resistance, that is a sign that resistance might actually be heading toward breaking. Okay, if that resistance is going to break, now we're in a situation where we've managed to test the downside quite nicely. We've managed to have a correction within this small uptrend that we've established, and we're now having another time-based correction. That's actually a really strong sign to me that the market could be looking to rise significantly higher up toward $70,000. Okay, and that's definitely very exciting because if we do get that explosion in the market, that's going to, we're now very much due for it. I think like we've got a very good setup to pull that off at this point because of the corrections that we've had and because of the fact that we've now been consolidating in this range for a very long period of time. So to now see that's 80 days, yeah, that's like 2 months and 20 days roughly. So to see now that we're almost forming like a bit, and it's not perfect, so I'm not going to draw it with lines, but we're also forming kind of like an ascending triangle type pattern here, where our lows are getting higher, but we're kind of still stuck at the same ceiling. To me, this is your very, very surefire sign that we're pulling off the right things that we need to be seeing for the market to take that lift off to the upside. So that's definitely very exciting for me from that particular perspective, because it heavily implies that even when we are getting comfortable at our zone of resistance, we are still, continuing to form bullish patterns. So we've got bullish patterns on the macro, and we've got bullish patterns here on the micro. So I'm really liking the look of that. In addition, we've just seen the S&P 500 open for this weekly candle here, and it gapped up. If we take a look at the S&P 500 here, this candle here was the first trading session for the S&P 500 of this week, Monday. We've also obviously got some weekly analysis, by the way. Let me just cover that with you before I move on. This Bitcoin weekly chart is fantastic. This Bitcoin weekly chart is amazing because in 1 week of trading, Bitcoin has engulfed 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks of price action. In 1 week of trading, Bitcoin has engulfed 4 weeks of price action. That is absolutely huge. And that tells me a lot about the strength that this market has to offer at this stage. Okay, if we're getting big engulfing candles like this, we're actually showing ourselves that in one trading session, everything that's happened before doesn't really matter. And this does usually precede a much bigger move. When you pull something like this off, the next thing that you get is typically, in my experience, you do typically get some phenomenal continuation to the upside afterwards. And that doesn't even matter if the current weekly candle ends up being a red one. It doesn't even matter if that's the case. It's generally going to point to, let's say 3, 4, 5 weeks of upside after that. So for me, huge deal. Definitely something that I am very much looking forward to, and definitely something that I want to see in this market here. So that's super, super cool. We'll come back to that in just a second because I want to show you some examples of where that happened before. But let's come back to the S&P though, because obviously one of the key ideas that I always put forward is that for me, Bitcoin is typically going to follow what traditional finance does, right? And so if traditional finance is looking happy, secure, safe, that's when you're going to see Bitcoin shining at its best as well. And that's definitely the situation which I think that traditional finance is in right now with Bitcoin, because the S&P 500 is back to setting brand new all-time highs. It set a brand new all-time high right here on Thursday, and today's Friday session basically at that all-time high already, So I'm sorry, today's Monday session. So we are so nearly there to set a brand new all-time high again. And obviously, when the S&P 500 does start setting brand new all-time highs, it keeps going, right? The S&P 500 is great at repeatedly setting new all-time highs. It does it all the time. When it breaks out, that is typically the beginning of much more upside. So again, if we start talking about Bitcoin and what that could mean for Bitcoin, that's when this breakout starts to get a little bit more enticing. And in fact, it looks like if we can zoom in here on the minute time frame, and this is only the minute time frame, we are starting to get some small breakout here. Take a look at this. We're up to $67,300 now, nearly. The highs that we've set are right here. If we zoom out, we have got another high up here at 67.7. But these local, very, very local highs right here that we've set basically in the last, going back 15 hours, we are just starting to breach these highs right now. So that is very, very interesting. And obviously the market really waking up since that S&P 500 open. The S&P 500 opened about 2 hours ago. And if we trace this back about 2 hours, what was it? We were around over here. So we have started to really make some nice moves to the upside after that open here, which is fantastic. Now, I want to show you a little bit more about these weekly engulfings, because to me, this is really interesting. This is by far one of the most powerful signs that the market can give you to show that we're going to see some upside. Here's another beautiful example, which is actually quite similar to what we're in right now. Within 1 week, we erased 1, 2, 3 weeks of bearish price action. We erased them all within one candle. And it is very similar to what we've had right now, right? Take a look at this one. And then we've got 4 candles slowly trending down. Very, very similar situation here. Over here, we've got 3 candles slowly trending down. You can actually go ahead and check this out on your own. You're going to be very impressed. Here, we got a bullish engulfing. Takes a couple of weeks, but we see some nice upside. I don't know if you want to count that one. I quite like it. This one, not amazing, but you do get a nice continuation to the upside in the following week. From this candle close at 24.3 up to 25.2. If you're a kind of short-term trader, that's still going to make you super happy. You can definitely keep on finding these as you go back. Here's one of the best examples in Bitcoin's history, potentially, where in one candle, you erase this candle nearly or potentially, and the one before that potentially as well. So a very, very impressive bullish engulfing candle here, resulting in a brand new Bitcoin all-time high roughly 4 months later, right? So very, very strong performance there from that perspective. And that's what we've done again right now. So again, a beautiful, beautiful weekly close there for Bitcoin, again, strongly implying some upside. If we come back to Bitcoin on the short term, it looks like we are seeing that breakout coming in now. That is absolutely fantastic. Look at that. We've got a breakout coming in above that $67,300 price level. We've got that recent high from Sunday. That's only 2 days ago that we are potentially going to be rising up to right now. So that is absolutely fantastic. If we can get up there, we are going to be looking at potentially breaching that high, and we are back to trending up if that is the case. So there's still some kind of nasty price action here that we've got to navigate around, but we've also corrected for quite some time. And, you know, if we're doing anything similar to what we had last time, well, then we managed to find resistance a couple of times. It then successfully sent Bitcoin down. But the next time we came up to that resistance area, we ended up blasting through it. So we've got a very similar kind of chart pattern here where a couple of times we got rejected. It ended up working. Then we come back up. Is this the real breakout? It would definitely make sense. In my experience, I've been trading for 7 years. Bitcoin loves to repeat characteristics, which it has already exhibited before. And it loves to do that on a small time frame, meaning that Bitcoin will have a certain characteristic which will last, let's say, 6 weeks. And within those 6 weeks, it will constantly do the same thing. So that's something which is super cool. And I certainly would not want to rule it out. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about, you know, some of the positions I want to take. And like I said, I'm going to be going much more in depth on this in the video that goes on my channel right after this one. So if you like this content, you want to see some more of it, feel free to check out my channel linked below. I'm covering the exact same stuff that you're getting here. We're going into much more depth, and you're getting it around the clock. So that's super cool. One of my favorite positions right now is this 67K level for a long position. If we're able to get above this zone of resistance, I would love to come back down and take a long off this particular price zone here, purely because I think that if you take a breakout trade, you have a very high chance of entering a trade on a wick like this, and then you are in a very, very uncomfortable position. But if you manage to wait for that breakout to substantiate itself, trade sideways a little bit, or trade significantly higher above the resistance level, that can tell you that actually this is meaningful in terms of a breakout. This isn't something that's just going to fall flat on its face after an hour, like this one over here pretty much did. You know, that gives you a little bit more time to substantiate the move. And then if the price does end up coming back down, you've got a really nice potential long entry there as well. So that's something which is definitely exciting. And I think at this stage, given how we've respected this resistance level so much, you know, it's going to be something which is going to hold some real, you know, some significant weight in this market now, you know, as potential support. And so what I'd love to see is that next move coming up to our resistance zone, and then we blast through it, and you are potentially looking at all-time highs right there. So that would be fantastic. Bitcoin's dominance hovering around 55.9, which is great. I'd love to see it continue to rise up. I'm sure it will if Bitcoin starts taking an uptrend. The dollar has continued to slide down overall. So I think that's been one of the key factors paving the way for all of this upside across the S&P 500 and Bitcoin. Let's take a look at Pepe as a quick example of the meme coin market. It's not something I want to focus on too much, but obviously it has been very hot lately. And Pepe does appear to be retesting one of those crucial zones of old resistance, potentially only just flipping into support or resistance. It's kind of hard to make it out right now, but I think that if Pepe is able to lose this level, it's going to have to drop down to this next zone over here and even lower. Altcoins overall have not been performing well. That's why I want to show this to you. You know, they have really taken a dip over this last little bit. You know, again, just to kind of put this in perspective, from May 6th up to today, I believe this is the right chart, with down by 25%. Let me just double check. Yeah. So, you know, fairly substantial losses here, especially considering that Bitcoin and so on are doing well. And obviously the reason we're seeing this happen is purely because when Bitcoin is boring, the you know, very ADHD nature of these markets is to switch to something else that looks a little bit more exciting. But as soon as Bitcoin starts doing something again, you no longer have a reason to be taking such exorbitant levels of risk, and you can start scaling it back a little bit and still make your money. And that's, I think, what a lot of people actually decide to do with their capital. So that's absolutely great. Let's take a quick look at Ethereum as well. See what Ethereum's doing. that breakout is continuing to look okay. I'm not worried about the fact that this target isn't being met quickly. Of course, this target is again just the measured move that we would get from the height of this descending triangle. Bitcoin, like I said, has done very well with its symmetrical triangle. So I would expect these other coins to kind of get there later on. Bitcoin MACD on the 2-week. Unfortunately, I don't use the MACD, and I won't claim to be good at using it on this stream, so I can't do that for you today. But this is a very regular show, and there are a lot of other traders that run episodes on the Fin Summit channel. So please tune into the next one. And I'm sure everybody uses the MACD. It's just not me. I'm sure somebody else would be able to answer that for you. Yeah, that that continuation on Ethereum, I'm sure, still able to come in. For Bitcoin, if Bitcoin loses this price level, then it's got phenomenal support down here at 65.5. We've already tagged it roughly, so that's absolutely great. And we've got even better support down at 63K. So I'm very open and very welcoming to that zone of support for Bitcoin at this stage in the market. There's obviously some really nice Fibonacci levels to be found down there as well, which is a beautiful cherry on the top, which I would love to see. So that's what I'm seeing for the downside. I think if we go lower than that, bull market's off. I think if we go higher than this, we're back to all-time highs. And right now, it looks like we are poised to break out higher. If we drop a little bit lower, but not lower than my red line at 63, then I think we're still in a really good place. It's only a good thing. We're just capturing more support at lower levels. So yeah, pretty good setup right now. With the S&P 500 breaking out to new all-time highs, with gold breaking out to new all-time highs, with the dollar sliding down, it's hard to paint a bearish image for Bitcoin. They're definitely, all three of them, these markets, looking pretty sweet right now. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed this stream. Ladies and gents, thank you all for tuning in, as usual, to the Fin Summit channel. If you've enjoyed this one, make sure you hit up the likes, make sure you subscribe, tick the bell, do all of that good stuff. And I will see you all in the next one. If you want to get more from me, if you want to see what I'm going to be covering on my channel next, then check it out with the link below.